So, hey everybody. Apparently, the recent surge that happened in my neighborhood must have fried my camera, as well as several other ports on my PC. So, you're not going to be seeing any webcam footage from me for a while. At least not until I get a new camera and possibly some repairs done. But, I did want to cover something that I found in my state's capital. Uh, I was there for a special event, and I found this QR code on a telephone pole with a picture of a UFO on it, and it led me to this website, which is a letter to Elon Musk. I'll put the link in the description for the website so you can check it out with me. This led me down a rabbit hole once I looked up the person whose account this was associated with, and it leads into some UFO cult. So what I figured we'd do is we take a look at the letter, just kind of go over it, and see where it takes us from there. So this is a letter to Elon Musk. Hello, Elon. To begin, I am fully aware of the unconventionality of writing a letter concerning what is on the surface just another UFO story to one of the most innovative, influential, and busy men in the world. But in this instance, the risk of not attempting so may prove too substantial, and I sincerely request that you read the following with an open mind, which should just take over 15 minutes. As someone who can comprehend the existing threats to future human survival as much as I and many others can, I have to insist that the details of this case should be of significant interest to you. If you haven't heard of him, Edward Albert Billy Meyer is an 84-year-old man from Switzerland who became known in the late 70s for taking what are up to date the most clear and numerous photos of video of alleged non-terrestrial spacecraft. The logical question is, of course, then why isn't this more popular? Simply put, the evidence seems too good to be true, so much so that the ramifications of its authenticity are perhaps too much for the general public to emotionally confront. The distant, blurry, one-time shot image of a UFO seems to be more appealing to most people because they can attach whatever qualities to the craft and its inhabitants that are more fanciful to them, or create whatever circumstances around the sighting that are more comforting or reasonable, i.e. that it's a rare and accidental event. Okay. This is the first problem I have with this already. Now, mind you, I am literally reading this letter for the first time. This fully for the first time. Late 70s. Picture quality wasn't the best. He takes the most clear and numerous photos of alleged non-terrestrial spacecraft. So the question is, why is it him that gets all the access to these supposed spacecraft? Why is he the only one that can get these photos? That kind of puts up a red flag for me as to be like, this is a fake or something like that. Yeah, but him taking the most clear and numerous photos makes me kind of wonder what's going on there and how he's the only one that gets these. However, with the Billy Meyer case, the photos and the story behind them indicate planned events involving contacts with the inhabitants of the craft, which are said to look no different from normal humans due partially to a distantly shared genetic ancestry. How fucking distant? Distantly shared genetic ancestry. Does this have to do with the concept of panspermia, where life on Earth came from another place? I don't know. According to Meyer's account, they only allowed him to the photo sites, though a number of friends and family members reported occasionally witnessing the crafts at a distance. Meyer said he would receive a mental signal from the pilot of the craft. Alright, I feel like this is automatically how you realize that someone is either crazy or just lying to you. After which point he would travel either by foot or moped to various secluded contact sites as directed. Despite having only one arm, having lost the other in an accident, and bringing nothing but his camera equipment, a walkie-talkie for when he needed to be picked up afterward, and perhaps some food, skeptics claim that once he arrived at the sites, he would suddenly produce models of spacecraft which, while taking photos with one hand, he would either throw in the air or maneuver with strings using an appendage that he doesn't have. I think he just might be lying. The opportunity to take close-up photos of the crafts ended in the 80s, as later advancements like CGI and Photoshop would render subsequent photo evidence more or less useless. but the contacts have allegedly continued up to the current day, and the conversations between Billy and these people referred to as the Plajarin, I don't know how you pronounce that, have been documented, published, and translated for over 4 decades, though he claims to have had preliminary contacts as a youth which were not documented until much later. Of course they weren't. Much of the information found in the contact notes involves matters of physics that we terrestrially have yet to prove or accept at a large scale, which poses a major problem for those delving into the case. Another unfortunate obstacle is the online presence of photos purported to depict extraterrestrial persons and prehistoric animals that Billy himself never claimed to take, but were released by other parties for the purposes of disinformation. Despite these stigmas related to the case, the more professional researchers have decided to focus on those aspects of the case which can actually be tested. This was first done in 1978 by a team led by Lee Elders, who at the time ran Intercept, a security company working with Fortune 500 companies in counter-industrial espionage. The team was organized by retired Air Force Colonel Wendell Stevens, who up to that point was one of the world's leading UFO investigators for decades. After visiting with Billy and other eyewitnesses on the property in Switzerland for several years, the main forms of evidence that were eventually sent out for analysis included photos and film of the craft, sound recordings of the craft, and metal samples given to Meyer that demonstrated the metal-making process for the craft. The results of the tests were later cataloged in the book UFO Contact from the Pleiades, a preliminary investigation by Colonel Wendell Stevens, as well as in Gary Kinder's book Light Years. After the photos were digitized, physicist aerospace industry subcontractor Neil Davies stated after examining one of the more impressive photos with a microdensitometer that nothing was found in the examination of the print, which caused me to believe that the object in the photo is anything other than a large object photographed a distance from the camera. Computer analyst at the time, Jim Dilatoso, determined through pixel distortion tests that based on the grain of the film, the object in the frame was photographed in the same original piece of film as at the same time the background was photographed, meaning there were no overlay of other images. Also using pixelation to determine the contour variation due to depth of focus of other objects in the frame, such as trees with known heights and distances, the contours of the craft indicated that it had a size of about 7 meters. Is that height, circumference, diameter? I don't know what the fuck they're referring to. Dr. Michael Malin, principal investigator for the Mars Orbiter camera and NASA's Mars Global Surveyor spacecraft at Space Science Systems, analyzed Meyer's photographs in 1981 and stated, "I find the photographs themselves credible. They're good photographs. They appear to represent a real phenomena." Aerospace engineer and NASA astronaut Gordon Cooper, who was a pilot on the Mercury, Atlas 9, and Gemini 5 missions, stated that he knew members of the Meyer investigation team very well, and after personally being shown photos of the craft once they returned from Switzerland, judged them as being absolutely authentic. Wally Gentleman, director of special effects for Stanley Kubrick's film 2001: A Space Odyssey, concluded after viewing Meyer's 8mm film segments of the UFOs that considering the expertise needed, the logistics, and the expense, a one-armed man with no assistance could not have possibly produced the footage. After noting aspects of the film, such as the shadow of one of the ships cast on a tree, some of the ships appearing to be behind the twigs of the tree, and the hue and tone of the ships being consistent relative to the tone of the background, indicating distance as opposed to objects close to the camera that would show a different hue, as well as commenting on how difficult it would be to hang such objects from balloons outside while maintaining consistent suspension or moving them over large sections of the horizon. Gentleman stated that it's all that sort of complication that leads me to think that the objects he's photographed and filmed were there independently and he simply snapped the shutter. As for the sounds of the craft, a portion of the audio recordings was given to Sonar Technician Submarine Senior Chief for the U.S. Navy Robin L. Shellman, and using a state-of-the-art spectrum analyzer to compare it to all known sounds cataloged at the Naval Undersea Sound Center in Groton, was able to identify background sounds such as a Pilatus, a single-motor Swiss Army reconnaissance plane, and a Junker Ju-52 tri-motor transport plane, each exhibiting the Doppler effect within the recording, as well as a European police siren, but could not identify the consistent target sound being that of the spacecraft. Okay, I'm not completely sure what the Naval Undersea Sound Center would have, why they would have land sounds when they're dealing with undersea shit. Could just be me being stupid right now. What could be concluded, however, was that it had to be a high-speed device rotating at different points between 250 and 59,000 RPM, ranging between 4.16 and 990 hertz. That's a pretty big difference. I don't really know how they can get that big of a range and not narrow it down somehow. The sounds were also taken to Peter Geimer and Rick Copeland of Micor in San Francisco, where they identified 32 characteristic frequencies, 24 in the audible range and 8 outside of it, that were produced simultaneously and that had no signs of tone-on-tone tape dubbing. When measured on an oscilloscope, there would appear to be a constant and random shift in frequency, where the principal waves of all frequencies would synchronize perfectly at one moment, only to then travel again in different stages and directions, exceeding the abilities of state-of-the-art synthesizers at the time. The metal samples given to Meyer were examined under electron spectrometer by Marcel Vogel, a research chemist at IBM for 22 years who held 32 patents and invented the magnetic disk coding used in IBM disk memories. He stated concerning one of the metal samples containing a number of elements, that each pure element was bonded to each of the others, yet somehow retained its own identity. I don't understand what that means. If each pure element was bonded to each of the others, then how do you distinguish which one is which? And besides, atoms don't touch. Atoms physically do not touch due to some force on them that creates a very, very slight distance between them. When thulium was revealed at 500x magnification, he stated, "Thulium exists only in minute amounts. It is exceedingly expensive, far beyond platinum, and rare to come by. Someone would have to have an extensive metallurgical knowledge even to be aware of a composition of this type." At 1600x magnification, Vogel said, "A whole new world appears in the specimen. There are structures within structures, very unusual." And at 2500x, Vogel found that the sample was metal, but at the same time it is crystal. He concluded by saying, "With any technology that I know of, we could not achieve this on this planet, and I think it's important that those of us who are in the scientific world sit down and do some serious study on these things instead of putting them off as people's imagination." Layers of metal interspersed with layers of crystal indicate cold fusion, which was the process used for making the ships, as claimed by the Plagiarin. Vogel had prepared to share his results with NASA senior research scientist Richard F. Haynes before the samples unfortunately went missing from his possession. How fucking convenient. Okay, it'd be nice if we had pictures of these magnifications. For you not to get any pictures kind of makes you sound dumb. Dr. David Froning, who by the time he became interested in Billy Meyer, had already spent 25 years as an astronautical engineer at McDonnell Douglas in highly classified military defense, took special note of the Plagiarin mention of tachyon propulsion in interstellar travel. After plugging in his quantum ramjet performance equations, I don't know what that means, I'll have to look that up, assuming a given starship density, vacuum energy conversion efficiency, transforming positrons and electrons into photons, and vacuum energy conversion scales of distance of the order of the Compton wavelength, the flight time computations were within 20% of the flight time mentioned by Meyer, which included acceleration to near light speed, a quick hyperjump, then deceleration from light speed. Froning publicly stated, "My colleagues and I may have made breakthroughs in our understanding of possibilities and ways for traveling faster than light from Billy Meyer's accounts of his encounters with the Plagiarins." Alright. This is another reason why this most likely didn't happen. Because if we were understanding faster than light travel, one, how could we get all that figured out from one man? Why is it Billy Meyer that makes all these fucking breakthroughs, like I said before? Two, why is it that today we would still not have the understanding of traveling faster than light? Joe Tisk, who served with USAF Office of Special Investigations during the late 1960s and early 70s, had supervised personnel investigations for the Department of Defense, concluded from his own research of the case that the only logical conclusion one could come to is that Billy Meyer had taken numerous authentic photos of UFOs, and more importantly, actual film of UFOs. A major problem with the case is the obvious question, why Billy, or why don't they land on the White House lawn? According to the case, Billy was told that as a general rule, the Plagiarin and other advanced races won't blatantly announce themselves to an entire civilization until it has become at least interstellar or somehow already collectively aware of the reality that they are not the only rational thinking beings in the universe, and a race as advanced as theirs would have no issues using technological means to avoid detection by us until such a time. Alright, so we've got another couple red flags. We won't tell you we exist until you understand. And we hide from you but make ourselves only visible to one man. That is the dumbest concept I'd ever heard in this letter. Another reason why this is most likely a scam or just a guy lying. Just by their presence, the Plagiaran would run the risk of being either feared or idolized by a planet's human population, which is not their intention. However, such an advanced people are still willing to introduce evidence and certain forms of knowledge to an individual they detect as having the moral, emotional, and intellectual maturity. Oh, figures. So he's like, yeah, I'm more moral, emotional, and intellectual than all of you, as well as the fortitude and life experience to carry out a purpose such as spreading such important yet highly contentious information to the public. The phrase "too many cooks spoil the broth" could also apply here. So he's basically telling everybody that he's better than everybody, and that's why they're only showing up to him. This allegedly has been done before on this planet as well as on others, and just as there is always someone who can be said is best at a certain feat or proclivity, Meyer is apparently considered best at controlling his state of mind to be compatible with the Plagiaran during direct communication, whereas with most other people, certain health complications would allegedly arise for both parties. There are, however, supposedly many other indirect contactees whom the Plagiaran only influence through mental impulses, which the contactees, usually people in different fields of science, have no conscious knowledge of taking place. Weird, then how do they know that people are being influenced if they don't even have knowledge of it taking place? In this way, the knowledge permeates society more gradually and safely. So these aliens, the Plagiaran, are giving the knowledge to people in science. The reason why there are no pictures of the Plagiaran themselves is very simple. They look like normal people in fitted jumpsuits. Anyone could fake this, as they would have claimed had Billy distributed such photos. I think it's more a reason to say we couldn't come up with anything that you would believe is a real alien. So we had to go with, oh, they look like us, so pictures wouldn't matter. Also, if he'd filmed a continuous shot of one of the ships hovering in the sky, then landing to reveal a person exiting the craft, Billy would have probably conveniently gone missing soon after that video was released to the public, of course, rendering the Plagiaran mission useless. Oh, so now they're going to get the conspiracy theory idea. A civilization this advanced would be wise enough to know that our governments are probably not trustworthy in spreading this information without much of it being altered, withheld, or used for selfish purposes. Even for governments that by now may have taken the case seriously, admitting such publicly would compromise their social standing or self-image, hence favoring to distract and placate alien enthusiasts with the occasional morsel of disclosed material as evidence. Rather than governments, it's up to perceptive individuals within a society to find the information in a case, consider its validity and importance, then share it accordingly. There is no requirement of belief, but only the encouragement of the application of the information as seen fit, which is naturally different from individual to individual according to personal experience, aptitudes, goals, etc. The case includes thousands of pages of information in the form of conversation transcripts and books regarding historical events, other existing or once existing extraterrestrial civilizations, biochemistry and medicine, the structure and formation of the universe, and the nature and function of consciousness in humans and other forms of life. Some of the information most important to us in an immediate sense, however, concerns natural phenomena or events that were predicted by the Plagiaran to be corroborated by terrestrial science in the near future, which were verifiably published long before the events or discoveries took place, first in German, then in several volumes of Message from the Pleiades, The Contact Notes of Edward Billy Meyer by Colonel Wendell Stevens, and subsequently on the internet. Some of the many predictions that Meyer was told and their dates of publication include 1951 told of the coming of climate disasters due to overpopulation, a connection we barely want to admit even now. I think we already knew about climate disasters at that point. 2001 told an eruption of Krakatoa in the 6th century veiled the Earth in dust particles for 18 months and affected the world climate, only corroborated by science in 2008. I might have to doubt that. 1975 told that atom bomb testing was tied to ozone depletion, which scientists corroborated in 88. In 88, told that Centaurus A galaxy is actually a supermassive black hole with the attractive force of 1.35 billion solar masses, discovered by scientists 13 years later. 1987, told that a gigantic explosion in the center of galaxy NGC 4636 would be discovered at the turn of the millennium, which it was 14 years later. 88, told that there's a wandering black hole in the Milky Way about 6,000 light years from Earth, which scientists first reported 14 years later. 79, told that a comet would approach Jupiter in 94 and explode into several pieces before crashing into it, which was then observed 15 years later. Comets crash into planets all the fucking time, so I don't know why that matters. Told that the first officially known attempt to bring planet and animal genes together would be from Japan transferring spinach genes into pigs, which happened 15 years later. I wonder if that's actually true. Told about the existence of dark matter and its connection to a certain form of anti-gravity, which was confirmed 17 years later. We barely know shit about dark matter. 1988 told of the necessity of certain aerosols in rain formation, confirmed by scientists 18 years later. 76 told the outer stratum of Mercury was constantly contracting due to its metal core, which NASA determined 32 years later. 76 told that less than 12,000 years ago, a planetoid several kilometers in diameter exploded into thousands of meteorites over Earth while entering its atmosphere, where two large chunks crashed into the Atlantic Ocean and penetrated the Earth's crust, rendering what was formerly a small continent into the current Azores archipelago. Scientists officially discovered the 3-kilometer-wide fried egg structure and its companion crater 93 miles south of the Azores 33 years later. Now, I don't know if any of these predictions, quote-unquote, were either actually assumed at that time and then just actually predicted. But then the question is, if it wasn't an alien that did it, what was it? But it seems more likely that he came up with all this information after the fact and then just applied it to a year with a specific prediction because he couldn't fucking prove it. He couldn't prove that he was the one who actually found it out first. It just seems like he looked at all of this specifically. He looked at all of the information after it happened and then just said that he discovered it years before. And now the most important part, what the predictions that have come to pass illustrate is perhaps the necessity to pay heed to predictions involving catastrophic events that have yet to occur, but that we may possibly be able to prevent, which they then technically designate as a prophecy, as opposed to a true prediction involving natural events that can't be avoided. One such example is that which concerns asteroid Apophis. According to the contact notes, Meyer was told in 81 that a meteor, the Plagiarin, designated as the Red Meteor, will crack the Earth from the North Sea to the Black Sea, from which will spew red-hot lava masses and a wall of sulfurous gas that will drift westward over the continent to create an additional death zone. When Meyer asked about the Red Meteor again in 2008, it was revealed that the former designation actually referred to the asteroid currently named Apophis, which the Plagiarin said was 350 meters long and will endanger the Earth on April 13th, 2029 or 2036, so way after Billy died. If he's dead, which I'm assuming he is. Adding that terrestrial scientists are urged to undertake every conceivable possibility to push the meteor permanently out of its orbit. Okay, here's another question. If they knew this thing was going to hit the Earth, 7 years is a huge fucking difference. Why couldn't they actually pick a year? I guess it's because if it fails in 29, then he can say, oh, well, we gotta wait till 36. Whereby particularly close to the meteor, atomic explosions should be considered. As you may know, official science has eliminated the possibility of an impact from Apophis, stating that it will only come so close as to dip under our satellites. However, as the Plagiarin have also allegedly stated, our value for pi is still incorrect, which is of course important to consider when determining the orbit of any asteroid, though being off by a few decimal places hasn't up until now caused major issues in theoretical or Earth local practical applications. These few decimal spaces can make up all the difference when calculating whether an asteroid currently 120 million kilometers away will come within only 31,000 kilometers of us or 0 kilometers. As it so happens, a man by the name of Harry Lear, former Military Assistance Command Vietnam Assistant Chief of Staff Intelligence, became interested in Apophis in 2013 due to the Billy Meyer case, and claimed to have subsequently determined that the actual value of pi is not 3.14159, but rather 3.14460, which he demonstrates on his website, measuring pi squaring phi. Oh, that's another thing we got to dive into now. Great. With geometric proofs in which he squares the sides of Kepler's golden ratio right triangle to determine the circumference of the circle, as well as by using NIST-certified pi tape to physically measure the circumference of a perfect 1 meter wooden circle cut out by a Prophet H08 CNC machine. After Lear sent his findings to Meyer, the Plagiarin, Meyer, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, I don't care. The Plagiarin allegedly confirmed them as being correct, which is why it may be worth considering Mr. Lear's information and reassessing the orbit of Apophis and the proximity of its approach both in 2029 and 36. Okay, so it's happening in 29 and 36. I thought it was happening in either one, not both. Aside from pi, there are other well-known factors that would put any trajectory calculation at risk of being unreliable, such as the spin of the asteroid, its mass, solar radiation-induced perturbations, non-uniform thermal heating, and gravitational influences of the sun, moon, and other planets and asteroids, the effects of which remain small until amplified by passage through Earth's gravity field, where, of course, the trajectory momentum changes rapidly. Since SpaceX is currently the authority on spacecraft development, your potential involvement in this matter could arguably determine what the European continent looks like in 8 years. Elon, I appeal to you to undertake what you can so that we may have a functioning near-Earth object deflection program as soon as possible. Most mainstream mathematicians and physicists wouldn't concede to the possibility of current pi being anything other than 100% accurate, which is why you deciding to take the initiative may be the only option we have. Needless to say, mention of UFOs should not be necessary in that particular endeavor. There are in all likelihood a number of academics who have studied and applied the information contained in the case and would never admit it for social reasons, and you need not be different should you decide you want to help. Unfortunately, since the 70s, the Meyer contacts have been largely subsumed into New Age esoteric culture as a novelty interest at best. Despite Meyer himself having been the target of supposedly over 22 documented assassination attempts since then, I want to see these documents. Since then, in an apparent effort to suppress the information in the case, an effort that we may also be evidenced by its suppression on the internet. Again, it's a conspiracy. They don't want you to believe it. That's why you can't find it. I think you're just a liar. However, since then, Meyer was also able to establish FIGU, an acronym for what translates as Free Community of Interest Universal, based in Schmidruti, Switzerland at the SSSC, with branches in Germany, Sweden, Russia, the Czech Republic, Italy, Japan, Canada, and Australia, in which members help translate, edit, and publish the material from the case, knowing that it would take many generations before people become receptive to the information at a more effective scale. The contacts with the Plagiarin themselves are supposedly to end within this decade, after which point we'll be left to our own devices. The information was never meant or expected to appeal at once to the masses or to those who require new information to be immediately convincing or rewarding to their egos, but rather to those possessing the intelligence to do the first necessary research. They are probably the main reason why other accounts of extraterrestrial contact are given more credence. They require no work, but only belief. Even if other purely anecdotal accounts of extraterrestrials happen to accord with the actual events, there is nothing to substantiate them or glean from them with importance anywhere near the level of that which could have been gleaned from the Meyer case. However, it's very important why, ironically, the people of FIGU have erroneously been referred to as belonging to a cult. Okay, so people consider them a cult, which means they probably are. In normal cases, great suspicion is obviously warranted toward any single source offering answers to so many of life's biggest questions. Smart cookie, yes. Then again, one could ask what else could be expected from a civilization allegedly many thousands of years more advanced than us. The information in the case is also presented in a dignified, focused, and purposeful manner, which obviously doesn't appeal to those who are generally apathetic, nihilistic, or fatalistic in their worldviews. Jesus, how much of this letter is left? Okay, I'm not that far. Come on. Okay. These are understandable reactions to the effects of religion on the planet and society over the centuries, but in no way a logical response to something like FIGU, merely because it aims to be helpful to people or employs symbolism in its messaging. In fact, Meyer's sources are claimed to expressly warn against dogmatic thinking and the belief in gods, guardian angels, messiahs, or other such middlemen, rather emphasizing the necessity for self-responsibility in determining our own meaning in the effort towards conscious evolution and the survival of our civilization as a whole. Okay, so they're warning against messiahs. But this Billy guy is supposedly the only one that knows all this information. That seems like a bit of a contradiction. Or, I don't know, hypocrisy, I don't know. Again, just because much of the science posited by the Plejaren wouldn't be corroborated by terrestrial science for many generations to come, doesn't mean we can't begin now with the ideas and hypotheses that could be helpful in leading to those associated advancements. We don't believe in science, and in most cases we can't claim to personally know the science unless we're actively duplicating someone's results in a lab or in the field. What most of us actually do, however, is trust the science because of the methods we know are used and the efficacy of the results. Neither you and I are film and sound analysts, metallurgists, or directors of special effects, but I'm certainly not asking you to simply believe the case, nor would I claim you should know it's real. I'm asking you to trust the professionals, at least enough to consider the reality of the case. You've achieved what you have in the name of progress because you realized early on that the, quote, somebody else will do it form of thinking is fatal. You took the initiative because you felt, given your aptitudes, that it was your responsibility to aim for goals that most would consider unlikely to be achieved, which is why such goals are uncommon. And many people like me are grateful for people like you to people like you for that. The events surrounding the Meyer case are certainly uncommon and therefore unfortunately also considered unlikely. So rather than being meek or passive, I decided to attempt something unlikely myself by writing this letter to you and others because I will not wait for somebody else to do it, for which I obviously expect and accept all incurred skepticism and mockery, especially in society where rampant conspiracies and fantasies involving extraterrestrials have led to a merited inability and lack of care for subtleties or indiscretion. It must be emphasized, however, that what we are talking about here is no alien salvation commune or internet conspiracy hub for the desperate and ignorant. The evidence in the case obviously hasn't been published in a peer-reviewed journal, and even though eyewitness corroboration or publication dates for Meyer's scientifically accurate information may be able to pass as authentic in legal terms, I do not expect official science to accept this as proof that we are being visited. What we do have, however, are high indications through a process of elimination, which ultimately lead to the question, is the information being presented worth testing in order to avert a potentially cataclysmic loss of human life? I can't see how the answer of any truly concerned or forward-thinking person would be no. Fiction has its obvious role in providing escapism, expressing the dreams and aspirations of mankind, and perhaps in the case of science fiction, suggesting a destiny and interstellar exploration that almost seems intrinsic to our DNA. It would seem logical that then if people are so interested in these concepts as entertainment, that they would be at least as, if not more, interested in an ongoing case that not only includes these very elements, but contains the added benefit of offering evidence of its reality. I'm urging you to take a step out of the current social paradigm and ask, what if, even if just for the amount of time it takes to look at the photo gallery of the spacecraft demonstrations, watch the documentary Silent Revolution of Truth, and check out Harry Lear's website of mathematical proofs. I'm sure, though, that if you happen to be Switzerland and decide to pass through the FIGU Center, that Billy and the other people there would be more than happy to give you specific information that might also benefit you personally. Here are the links. So we've got a YouTube video, Harry Lear's website, American media representative of Billy Meyer, the website for FIGU. Futureofmankind.info is the Billy Meyer wiki. You tell me that's not going to be fucking biased. Elon, I truly thank you for taking the time to read this. Best regards, Jordan D. Very long letter. Many things that I'm going to have to dive into. I guess let's take a look at the photos quick. Alien. I mean, it pretty much looks like he took the same picture of an alien and of a spacecraft and posted it along the same thing. This looks like the glass elevator scene from Willy Wonka. The 1971 version, it looks like, where the elevator is clearer than everything in the background. Yeah, I am not believing, like, 99% of these. I mean, pretty much I don't believe 100% of these. Why are you filming a fucking tripod? Why is the tripod getting in the camera shot? Or whatever the hell that is. Oh, that might be a mic. I don't know. Surely the family would have noticed the giant thing in the sky. Just standing there talking like nothing is going on. People have been taken along to photograph without permission. Somebody's lost control of reactions. despite the fact that she initially allowed the pictures to be taken. Who is Semjace? I don't know who that is. I'm assuming that's the leader of the spacecraft. She allowed the pictures to be taken. She later tried to destroy them by radiating the sensitive negatives, in which she only partially succeeded in doing. Okay, so these are supposedly witnesses. This looks... I don't even get this. This is just a light bar. It just looks like it's like a pasted on thing over an image. Alien shadows. This looks like a Doctor Who spaceship. Oh, now you get the shitty quality. You get all the shitty quality followed by this really, really good stuff. Okay, you got where they supposedly landed. A hole in a tree. Okay. I'm assuming this is Billy Meyer. Oh, this is the metal. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know what to make of this. At all. Yeah. I don't know what to make of that at all. It's just metal to me. I don't recognize any of it. Oh, that's Billy. From 1964, the Flying Saucer Man leaves Delhi. Swiss claims he has visited 3 planets. Oh, he claims he's visited these planets now. He's even crazier. Okay. This is... kind of looks like James Randi. You know, the famous skeptic. Okay. Is this what they were supposed to look like? Or is that just somebody from a country? Alright, so that's the pictures on Billy Meyer's website. The contact notes. Jesus, this is going to be a pain in the ass. Coronavirus! Okay, that's going to be fun when we get there.